Chapter 4232, Little Darling. It was daytime when a certain someone arrived at the nameless sword sect. However, he did not care about day or night now. He directly flashed into the nameless sword sect. The disciples guarding the door only saw a white afterimage. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared again. They all thought that their eyes were playing tricks on them, so they did not take it seriously. A certain someone soon arrived at He Xinjia's courtyard and easily opened the restriction. However, he found that there was no one inside. However, he found a note on the desk in the room with a few lines of words written on it. Ex-fiancé, didn't I tell you not to disturb my happy life? I went to play with my little darling. Go back to where you came from. Little sister is not interested in you anymore. Little darling? The cold air from a certain someone's body instantly turned all the bottles and jars in the house into pieces. Very well, he wanted to see who that little darling was. However, a certain someone only realized a crucial question after a while. Where exactly did she go with that little darling? He walked out of the courtyard and casually grabbed a disciple, forcing him to ask, "Where did Yun Chujio go?" The disciple was almost frozen into an ice sculpture. He did not want to say anything, but the pressure from Di Biming made him spit out a mouthful of blood. He had no choice but to tell the truth. Junior sister Yun went to the sword technique conference with Master Ouyang and the others. The sword technique conference? Di Biming frowned slightly. Didn't he say that he had gone to play with little darling? He asked again, who has she been having an unusual relationship with recently? The disciple was so frightened that he had fainted. Naturally, he told him everything he knew. She is very close to Li Zhuangji, Zhao Hui, and Hall Master Zhuge and Zhuge Dong. Elder Dongfang, Elder Duanmu, Di Biming snorted coldly. Anything else? Yes, there's also Chu Fang. Ever since the whale feast, junior sister Yun and Chu Fang have a very good relationship. They even went to the ghost city of Tao Tai together and were trapped there for a month. Alright, they even went to the bewildering shadow forest together. Chu Fang often comes to look for junior sister Yun. Di Biming interrupted him and asked, did Chu Fang go to the sword technique conference that you mentioned? The disciple nodded repeatedly. Yes, he went. I heard that Chu Fang has been smiling whenever he meets people recently. He's so high-spirited and happy. Di Biming knocked the disciple out with one palm. It seemed that Chu Fang was the little darling that she talked about. Because whether it was from the time or the possibility, Chu Fang was the most suspicious. No wonder she could even lie about him not being able to do it. It turned out that she really liked someone else. Di Biming only felt that his body was filled with anger. There was also a hint of unexplainable panic mixed within. The reason why he decided to put aside the feelings between men and women was because he believed that his relationship with Yun Chujio would not change. However, at this moment, he did not have the confidence he had before. He could not be by her side at all times. Chu Fang had been with her day and night, and they had even gone through life and death together. Could it be that she had really changed her heart? Although he felt that it was impossible, after all, his relationship with Yun Chujio had gone through so many ups and downs. How could it be possible that her heart had suddenly changed? However, on the other hand, when he heard that Yun Chujio and Chu Fang were very close, he felt very uncomfortable, especially when Yun Chujio mentioned the little darling, which made his heart feel as if it was blocked by a big stone, and he simply couldn't breathe. Therefore, after a certain honored warrior woke up the unlucky disciple and asked for the location of the sword technique conference, he left in a hurry. Chapter 4233, Sword Technique Conference. Due to Shui Wuji's delay of a few days and the time on the way back, when Di Biming left the nameless sword sect, He Xinjiao had already arrived at the venue of the Sword Technique Conference. Initially, He Xinjiao did not want to come to the Sword Technique Conference at all. This Sword Technique Conference was attended by a private person and not a sect. Moreover, it was not compulsory, so this fellow did not have much interest. But Chu Fang was interested. The reason was very simple. Xiao Yu would definitely attend. If he did not seize such a good opportunity to meet her, he would be a fool. Therefore, he tried his best to persuade He Xinjiao to go with him. Junior sister Yun, the Sword Technique Conference is a grand event for all the swordsmen in the northern continent. If you don't go, you will regret it for the rest of your life. Not interested. Junior sister Yun, don't you want to make a name for yourself in the sword technique conference? I'm not interested. Junior sister Yun, the sword technique conference is very lively. Not only are there sword techniques competitions, but there are also many vendors. There are all kinds of delicacies everywhere. Senior brother Chu, when do we leave? Chu Fong. It turned out that this guy was a foodie. Although the sword technique conference wasn't organized by the sect, the nameless sword sect was famous for their swordsmanship, so they naturally attached great importance to it. After a discussion, it was decided that Master Ouyang would personally lead the team. He would bring Elder Duanmu and the others along with a few successive disciples. As for Yun Chujio, an inner disciple, with the help of Elder Duanmu and Elder Dongfang, the two great Buddhas, she also followed obediently. The Sword Technique Conference was held once every 10 years and was held at the foot of Mount Azure. The reason why it was set at Mount Azure was mainly because Mount Azure was located in the center of the northern continent, making it convenient for everyone to go there. Furthermore, the 6 major sects had agreed that the area within a few hundred miles of Mount Azure was a public area. Bai Li and Yun Chujio were not allowed to touch it, no one was allowed to touch it. On the way, Yun Chujio asked Chu Fong what delicious food he had. Finally, they got down to business. Senior brother Chu, there must be prizes in this sword technique conference, right? Otherwise, what's the point of competing? Just for reputation? That's not worth it. Chu Fong, only you don't take reputation seriously, and others take it seriously, okay? Those who participate in the sword technique conference, if they are outstanding disciples, they will be valued by the sect, and the sect will also have rewards. If they are outstanding itinerant cultivators, they will be favored by the 6 great sects, and have the chance to become disciples of the 6 great sects, or even elders. In addition, the top 10 will have a certain reward, which comes from the rent of the surrounding shops and the profits from selling the Tsongli blood ginseng, which is unique to Yun Songshan. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. Then how will the sword technique conference be compared? If Master Ouyang goes up on a whim, what will the others compete for? The corner of Chu Fang's eyes twitched. Master Ouyang, jumping? Are you sure there's nothing wrong with your choice of words? Junior sister Yun, you may not know this, but there's an unwritten rule in the sword technique conference. The masters and elders of the 6 great sects don't go on stage. Those who go on stage to compete are usually disciples of the various sects or some itinerant cultivators. Yun Chujio curled her lips when she heard this. How could this be called the Sword Technique Conference? Wasn't it still a competition between the various great sects and the selection of some new disciples? However, her purpose was to eat and stroll around, so this had nothing to do with her. She would just watch the show when the time came. 2 days later, the group arrived at Yuntsong City, which was only dozens of miles away from Yuntsong Mountain. The first thing Chu Fong did after entering the city was to ask whether the people from the Flying Flower Island had arrived. After receiving a positive answer, he immediately grinned foolishly. Chapter 4234, Sword Evaluation. Yun Chujio could not bear to look at him. Senior brother Chu was usually a very observant person. Why did he turn into an idiot the moment he heard about Little Moon? The Sword Technique Conference did not just consist of a competition. There were also other procedures, such as sword evaluation, sword technique explanation, and so on. No matter what, it would take at least 10 days to half a month. Therefore, the Nameless Sword sect had booked an inn. They were saving it for the night when they came back to rest. Just as they settled down, Chu Fong came to Yun Chujio in a hurry. Junior sister Yun, about that, can you help me ask her out? Yun Chujio chuckled. Senior brother Chu, it's not like I'm the one looking for Little Moon. Why don't you ask her out yourself? Chu Fong stammered. About that, if Island Master Chi sees me, he definitely won't let her out. You, if you can speak well, you can definitely get Island Master Chi to agree. Yun Chujio looked at Chu Fong as if she was looking at an idiot. Senior brother Chu, don't you have the Little Moon's voice transmission talisman? Can't you just use the voice transmission talisman to summon her? Why do you have to come here to be tortured? Chu Fong. That's right, how could he forget that he still had a voice transmission talisman? Yun Chujio looked speechlessly at Chu Fong, who ran away in a panic. Indeed, the IQ of a person in love was 0. This fellow thought of his crazy fiancée who was going against the heavens and the earth again, and the corners of his mouth curled up. If nothing unexpected happened, the pretty boy would probably come knocking on his door at the end of the sword technique conference. Just wait and see. No matter how he changed his 72 transformations, he couldn't escape from her palm. The next morning, the sword technique conference officially began. Like all grand events, at the beginning, it would definitely be some influential figures talking. Hei Shinjio was nibbling on a spirit fruit as she listened incoherently. This fellow glanced at the VIP seats and didn't see Tower Master Luchin. However, he didn't take it to heart. It would be better if he didn't come. It was annoying to see him. Finally, those people finished their conversation and the host of the sword technique conference announced the start of the sword tasting. The so-called sword tasting was when a sword forger took out his or her best work and displayed it. Most sword forgers wanted to make a name for themselves by doing so. This way, the sword that they forged in the future would be sold at a good price. Of course, for a sword forger at Elder Duanmus level, it was beneath them to sell their swords for money. However, in order to protect the reputation of the nameless sword sect, they would still take out 1 or 2 swords and display them. As soon as the host finished speaking, several sword forgers who had already signed up jumped onto the high platform and took out their swords to display them one by one. As the saying goes, the sword is light and agile. Everyone, please take a look. The sword that I have forged is as thin as paper, but it is incomparably sharp. It can be said to be a first-class high-grade sword. What's the use of being light and thin? This treasure sword of mine can bend at will without breaking. If a treasure sword doesn't have enough toughness, then it would be better to use a knife. This treasure sword of mine is not only light and thin, but it is also very flexible. It is inlaid with precious Starjwa stone, and its lethality has more than doubled. Yun Chujio looked at those sword forger sharp-tongued Granny Wang and felt very bored. She said to Chu Fong beside her, "Senior brother Chu, I'm going to eat a bowl of wonton at the wonton stall over there. Do you want to go?" Yun Chujio noticed that Chu Fong did not react after she finished speaking. She turned her head and saw Chu Fong looking into the distance in a daze. Yun Chujio looked in the direction he was looking and saw Xiao Yu sitting behind Island Master Qi. Yun Chujio coughed a few times before Chu Fong came back to his senses. He looked a little embarrassed. "Junior Marshal Sister Yun, what did you say just now?" Chapter 42:35 Fast and slow. Yun Chujio looked at him speechlessly and asked, "Did you see Little Moon yesterday?" Chu Fong looked annoyed. Island Master Qi didn't allow her to leave the inn, and now he has made her sit behind him and not allow her to leave. I can only take a few glances from afar. Yun Chujio heard the bitterness in Chu Fang's words and could not help but laugh. She said, "Anyway, the sword technique conference will take a few days. I don't believe that Island Master Qi can keep looking at Little Moon. You will see her eventually." Chu Fong scratched his head in embarrassment and asked, "Junior Sister Yun, what did you say just now?" "I said that the sword ranking above is really boring. It's nothing more than Granny Wang selling melons and boasting. I'm going to eat a bowl of wonton at the wonton stall over there. Are you going?" Chu Fong saw that Xiao Yu could not be seen at the wonton stall and immediately rejected her. Yun Chujio pursed her lips. She had really forgotten about loyalty at the sight of lust. If she did not want to go, then so be it. She would go by herself. Hence, this fellow squeezed through the crowd to the wonton stall and ordered a bowl of wonton. As it was still the morning and the sword tasting was in full swing, not to mention the wonton stall, Hei Shinjio was the only guest at this bunch of snack stalls. Some vendors even stretched their necks to watch the show. The owner of the wonton stall was a middle-aged couple. He specially served Yun Chujio a few more wontons. After Yun Chujio thanked him, she began to eat. The old couple made wontons while talking incoherently. "Master, you said you've made wontons for your whole life. Why are you still making them so slowly?" The old lady said with disdain. The old man was not annoyed. He said slowly, "Old lady, even though I'm slow, the wontons I make are well-behaved and never give away. You're fast. You always leave a few behind. In the end, I ate all the noodles. I've never eaten wontons with fillings in my life. I've been eating noodles all my life. The old lady glared at him. What? Are you not happy? There were so many young men chasing me back then. Why did I choose a slow-tempered person like you? The old man smiled. One is fast and one is slow. One is fast and one is slow. Aren't they perfect for each other? This is just like those people who compete with swords. It's not always good to be fast or slow. When Yun Chujio heard this, her heart skipped a beat. She smiled and asked, Old man, isn't it said that in this world, speed is the only thing that cannot be broken? How can it be good to be slow? The old man chuckled and said, Although you say that, it's not necessarily bad to be slow. For example, this old woman of mine is very fast, but every time I cook, I have to expose a few of them. Although I wrap them slowly, the quality is very good. The old man has watched countless matches on this competition stage. If you only focus on speed, you can't follow the rules. This speed is also slow, but as long as you seize the opponent's weakness and succeed in one strike, this slow is also fast. Yun Chujio was stunned when she heard that. She recalled the time when the drifters had transformed into two human figures to compete with their swords. One was fast and the other was slow, but there was still no winner. At that time, she was still wondering why slow sword could be evenly matched with fast sword. However, she did not expect to be exposed by this old man. That's right. There was no absolute speed or slowness in the first place. It was just a relative term. Cut the complexity and simplify it. Get rid of those useless moves and find the opponent's weakness. Even slow sword was enough to defeat the opponent in one move. The old lady saw that Yun Chujio was stunned and could not help but glare at the old man. You're spouting nonsense. Look, this little girl has become a demon. You're just a wonton seller, and you're still talking about swordsmanship and feigning. Chapter 4236 Slow Sword Intent. The old man did not expect that Yun Chujio would be in a daze after hearing his casual remark. For a moment, she was also a little confused. She said embarrassedly, I was just making a casual remark. Who would have thought that this little girl would become a demon? The old couple was at a loss. They wanted to wake up Yun Chujio, but they were afraid that something was wrong, so they could only look at her worriedly. After a moment, Yun Chujio came back to her senses and bowed solemnly to the old man. Old man, thank you for your advice. The old man was confused and stuttered, Young lady, what do you mean by this? Yun Chujio smiled brightly. Although the old man didn't mean it, I heard that he meant it and solved a problem that I have been puzzled about. Of course, I should thank you. Although the old man still didn't quite understand, he was relieved when he saw that Yun Chujio was smiling and didn't seem to be in trouble. This little girl was dressed in the nameless sword sex uniform. If something really happened to them, they wouldn't be able to afford it. Yun Chujio comprehended the slow sword intent in that instant and was very grateful to the old couple. If she was treated well by others, she would treat them 100 times better. Seeing that the old couple's life didn't seem to be very comfortable, she wanted to help them. Although she could give the old couple a lot of spiritual stones, the old couple didn't have high spiritual power, but they were quite strong-willed and probably wouldn't want them. She blinked her eyes, took out a dark spirit egg and said, Old man, thank you for your advice. This dark spirit egg is for you. It's not a valuable thing. Please don't take offense. The old man was not willing to accept it. He kept trying to avoid it. Yun Chujio smiled and said, This is a gift from the shopkeeper when I bought the item. The chances of having dark spirit stones in it are very small, so even if you sell it, it won't be worth much. Just keep it. The old man saw that Yun Chujio insisted on giving it away, so he had no choice but to keep it. Then he said, Little girl, that old man will be thick-skinned enough to accept it. However, you have to come and visit often these few days. Yun Chujio said with a smile, Of course. Not only are there seats here, but there are also delicious food. It's much better than those acrobatics on the stage. The old man and the old lady were amused by her. The old lady said angrily, You little girl, everyone is here for the sword technique conference. Only you think that it's acrobatics. Yun Chujio giggled and began to chat with the old couple. During the conversation, Yun Chujio specifically instructed the two of them not to give the dark spirit egg to anyone else. They must go to the shop and have someone there take a look at it. The old couple nodded in agreement, but they did not take it seriously. They were prepared to wait until the sword technique conference was over before going to the shop to take a look. The dark spirit egg that Yun Chujio gave them was only a 2-star egg. It was not that she was reluctant to give them a better one, but that it was a sin to have a treasure. A 2-star dark spirit stone was just right for them. Apparently, the old couple liked Hei Shinjio, who was very witty. Moreover, it was not noon yet, and there were no customers, so they started to talk. While Yun Chujio was chatting with the old couple, the crowd exclaimed. Yun Chujio turned her head and saw a middle-aged man on the high platform. He was holding a treasure sword in his hand. Even though Yun Chujio was far away, she could tell that the treasure sword was extraordinary. The old man muttered to himself, "Good sword. Good sword. It doesn't look any worse than the treasured sword forged by Master Sword Forger." The old lady said angrily, "How do you know? Stop talking nonsense." Yun Chujio felt that the interaction between the old couple was very interesting. The old man was wise but foolish, while the old lady was sharp-tongued but soft-hearted. This kind of bland happiness was very enviable. Yun Chujio regained her senses and heard the person on the stage say, "I heard that the Nameless Sword sect has 2 sword forging masters. I wonder if there are any swords that are better than the Wind Shadow sword in my hand?" Elder Duanmu and Elder Dongfang were both in the VIP seats. They frowned when they heard this. This was the first time they had encountered such a situation. The two of them wanted to ignore it, but they did not expect that the person on the stage would speak more and more arrogantly and harshly. His words implied that Elder Duanmu and Elder Dongfang were cowards. Elder Duanmu had a bad temper to begin with, so how could he endure it? He immediately left the VIP seats and went onto the high platform. He didn't say anything. He just took out a sword that glowed with a cold light from his storage ring. The expression of the person who had been clamoring earlier changed slightly. He was afraid of comparing goods. The Moon Shadow sword in his hand was not bad, but it was not as good as the sword in Elder Duanmu's hand. Elder Duanmu snorted. Just as he was about to leave the stage, the person took out another sword and said contemptuously, "The Moon Shadow sword I used just now was just for fun. This blood-devouring sword is what I'm proud of." Everyone's gaze fell on the blood-devouring sword in the man's hand, especially Elder Duanmu, who was on the stage. His eyes were filled with disbelief. The blood-devouring sword was as thin as paper, and the grooves on its body were faintly red. Elder Duanmu could even feel the killing intent coming from it. Elder Duanmu knew that he had lost. If the 1,000-cleaving sword had not been stolen, he might have been able to compete with the blood-devouring sword. Was he going to admit defeat just like that? Please visit P-Alpha-1. MHE represented the reputation of the Nameless Sword sect. If he admitted defeat, how would the reputation of the sect be preserved? The laymen watched the show, but the experts knew the ropes. Elder Dongfang's expression changed as well. He had a pretty good sword in his hand, but if they were to compete, it could not be compared to the blood-devouring sword in that person's hand. What was the background of this person? Logically speaking, he knew all of the reputable sword forgers in the northern continent. Why would such a person suddenly appear? P-Alpha-1. Seeing that Elder Duanmu remained silent, the person on the stage suddenly raised his sword and stabbed at Elder Duanmu. Elder Duanmu subconsciously picked up the sword in his hand to resist, and with a crack. The sword in Elder Duanmu's hand was actually cut in half by that person. Then, that person abruptly retreated and leaped out of Elder Duanmu's attack range. With a fake smile, he said, "Elder Duanmu, please forgive me for my offense. However, I just want to verify whose sword is better between the two swords. Now that the winner has been decided, please go back." Elder Duanmu's face turned red and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. As the saying goes, the sword is with the person, and the broken sword is the biggest insult to the sword practitioner. In terms of spiritual power, that person was far from being Elder Duanmu's match. However, under the watchful eyes of the public, if Elder Duanmu killed him, it was inevitable that he would leave something to talk about. However, if he did nothing, he really could not swallow his anger. Yun Chujio, who was standing at the wonton stall to watch the commotion, said to the old couple, "Elders, I'll go up and take care of that frog at the bottom of the well. I'll come back and chat with you guys later." The old man and the old lady looked at each other. Was this little girl crazy? Before the old couple could say anything, Yun Chujio had already run far away. Seeing that there was a crowded crowd in front of them, this fellow shouted in a clear voice, "Make way! Make way! Make way! I have a peerless sword to crush that shameless frog at the bottom of the well." Hearing that, the crowd made a path for this fellow. However, there was doubt in their eyes. Even Elder Duanmus' treasured sword had been cut off by that person. What kind of treasured sword could she have? Yun Chujio passed through the crowd and leaped onto the high platform. She said to Elder Duanmu with a look of disdain, "Elder Duanmu, you are good in everything, but you are too soft-hearted. Are you afraid of striking this frog at the bottom of the well? Is that why you didn't take out your good stuff? Don't you know that being merciful to your enemy is the greatest cruelty to yourself? Really, you should return to the VIP seats first. The gadgets you gave me previously are enough to torture him to death. I will soon let him know that he has overestimated himself." Elder Duanmu was dumbfounded. Since when did he give her gadgets? How could she compare with him? However, he thought that this little girl was full of bad ideas. Perhaps there was really a way, so he forced himself to calm down and replied before jumping off the high platform. After Elder Duanmu left, Yun Chujio looked at the middle-aged man and curled her lips. "You don't look like a good person. Otherwise, why didn't you tell us your name? Are you feeling guilty?" The man snorted coldly. "Fine, I won't change my surname. He Hongchuan, cut the crap. Show us your sword." He Hongchuan firmly believed that Yun Chujio did not have any treasure sword. After all, even Elder Duanmu did not have one. How could a little girl like her have any treasure sword? Yun Chujio smiled contemptuously and said, "Before I show my sword, I'll let everyone have a look at something good. Everyone, please take a look." Everyone stared with wide eyes. They saw Yun Chujio take out a big black wok. The old man who sold wontons staggered and almost fell to the ground. If this big black wok was used to cook wontons, it would be fine, but if he went up to participate in the sword evaluation, wouldn't that be fooling around? Please visit P-Alpha-1. Co. M. The people below also started to jeer. They felt that Yun Chujio was messing around, and He Hongchuan had a disdainful look on his face. When the crowd's discussion quieted down, Yun Chujio said with a smile, "Don't look down on this big black wok of mine. A few people who know what's going on will come up and see what's going on." Some people who liked to join in the fun immediately jumped onto the high platform and took a closer look at the big black pot. They immediately exclaimed, This big black pot has actually been repaired with 1,000-year black iron? Isn't this too wasteful? 1,000-year black iron is such a good material, but it's actually used to repair this broken pot? That's right, this is simply a reckless waste of God's gift. Yun Chujio said nonchalantly, "In our nameless sword sect, the 1,000-year black iron is only good enough to repair pots and pans. Therefore, Elder Duanmu intentionally let He Hongchuan off just now." Yun Chujio's words caused an uproar. Master Ouyang was dumbfounded. When did their nameless sword sect become so rich? How did he, the sect master, not know about this? P-Alpha-1. Oh, sure enough, after He Hongchuan was stunned for a moment, he sneered and said, "What does this mean? Don't talk about him. This is the sword grading assembly. What's the use of having a big black pot?" Yun Chujio said with a smile, "Of course it's useful. You don't know, but Elder Duanmu saw that I'm smart and cute, so not only did he help me fix this big black pot, but he also helped me forge a peerless sword." As Yun Chujio spoke, she took out the best product that every household must have, a large kitchen knife. The crowd below was in an uproar again. Could this little girl be a handyman in the nameless sword sect's kitchen? Why is it either a pot or a kitchen knife? "I know her. She's that Yun Chujio, the southern continent's female emperor of Fenghua. I heard that she made a great contribution in Ghost City a few days ago. Ah, so she's Yun Chujio. She's not bad looking, but is there something wrong with her brain? This is a sword grading competition. What's wrong with her using a big kitchen knife? He Hongchuan's face was full of contempt. It's a pot and a kitchen knife. Do you think this is a competition between chefs? The Nameless Sword sect actually reduced themselves to using a kitchen knife as a treasure sword. This is really an eye-opener. Yun Chujio said with the air of an expert, "It's not right for you to say that. As long as there is a sword in your heart, anything in your hand can be a sword. Let alone a kitchen knife, even a tree branch can be a sword. Don't tell me that you don't even know the most basic swordsmanship, you idiot." He Hongchuan was choked by He Xinjia's rebuke and said angrily, "Well, since you are determined to compete with me, then let's compete." As He Hongchuan said that, he stabbed his sword towards Yun Chujio. His thoughts could be said to be vicious. Although he said that he was only testing the sword, the bloodthirsty sword in his hand was aimed at Yun Chujio's throat. Yun Chujio's eyes flashed with a hint of coldness. Old man Duanmu was good to her. This person had humiliated old man Duanmu just now. She originally only wanted to teach him a lesson. She didn't expect that he actually had the intention to kill her. In that case, go to hell. Seeing that the sword in He Hongchuan's hand was about to reach her, Yun Chujio took the large kitchen knife to block the bloodthirsty sword. Please visit P-Alpha-1. Ko, He Hongchuan's eyes flashed with a trace of viciousness. He was certain that Yun Chujio's large kitchen knife would break. When that happened, he would pretend to accidentally kill this bitch. Those people would not be able to do anything to him. Who would have thought that when the bloodthirsty sword and the large kitchen knife collided, the large kitchen knife would be fine? However, the bloodthirsty sword in He Hongchuan's hand curled its blade. He Hongchuan had never dreamed that this would happen. For a moment he was stunned, but the big kitchen knife in Yun Chujio's hand was still slashing towards his neck. He Hongchuan subconsciously used the blood-devouring sword to resist, and the blood-devouring sword broke with a sound. However, Yun Chujio did not retract her big kitchen knife, and directly cut off He Hongchuan's neck with the force. He Hongchuan's body fell to the ground with a plop, and the half of the blood-devouring sword in his hand also fell to the ground with a bang. Yun Chujio held the bloody kitchen knife and said to He Hongchuan's body, "Hey, I thought your blood-devouring sword was very powerful, but it failed to restrain its power. I'm sorry. Have a safe journey. See you out." Pialfanolfano. On one hand, the audience was shocked that the kitchen knife in Yun Chujio's hand had broken the blood-devouring sword, and on the other hand, they were shocked by He Xinjia's ruthlessness. This little girl looked kind and harmless, but they did not expect her to use a killing move. Wasn't this too ruthless? However, there were also people who could tell that He Hongchuan already had the intention to kill, so he had brought this upon himself. At this moment, Yun Chujio said to the crowd below the stage, "Our Nameless Sword sect has a motto. If people don't attack me, I won't attack them. If people attack me, it'll take their dog life." Everyone was in an uproar when they heard this, especially Master Ouyang. He thought to himself, why didn't he know about this ancestral motto? If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, it'll take their dog lives? The first 3 sentences were decent, but why was the last sentence so off-key? After Yun Chujio finished her harsh words, she strolled down the high platform. This time, she didn't have to shout, so everyone gave her a path. What a joke! They didn't dare to not make a path for her. This fellow was still carrying that big bloody kitchen knife. The host looked at Yun Chujio's elegant back with a dumbfounded expression. How did this sword-tasting turn into killing? He looked at Island Master Chi and the others in the VIP seats. Was this matter going to end like this? Just kill her? Island Master Chi and the others didn't say anything. With their cultivation, they could naturally tell that He Hongchuan was the first to have the intention to kill. He deserved to die. The leader of the 9 pavilions this time was an elder surnamed Zhu. His eyes flickered a few times and he said with a smile, "The Nameless Sword sect is really impressive. An inner sect disciple is so tyrannical. It's really an eye-opener." Master Ouyang snorted coldly. Yun Chujio was just defending herself. How can she be impressive? Let alone tyrannical. Pielfriend Alpha no one, Ouyang Chujio swaggered back to the wonton stall. The old couple no longer had their previous calmness. Their legs were still trembling when they looked at them carefully. Yun Chujio could not help but laugh. Old man, I am not a demon who kills people. Why are you so afraid of me? Come, let's continue talking. The old man and old lady were about to cry. Aren't you a demon that kills people? You just killed one person, alright? Although there were deaths and injuries in the previous sword technique conference, it was usually the later competitions that had occasional failures. However, this was the first time someone had died in the sword technique conference. Please visit PL for Alpha-1. Min particular, this little girl gave people the impression that she was a naive and innocent little girl. Who would have thought that she would become a female demon that kills people in the blink of an eye? The old man said dryly, Aunt Little Fairy, please have a seat. We are going to make wontons. Yun Chujio could not help but roll her eyes. Well, it seemed that she was really scared. Otherwise, she would not have turned from a little girl to a little fairy. She scooped a bowl of wonton soup herself and drank it slowly. The old couple saw that there was nothing unusual about her, so they relaxed a little and continued to make wontons. Although there was such an interlude in the sword tasting competition on the stage, it still went on. However, everyone was a little dispirited. After all, they were used to eating big fish and big meat, so who would be interested in plain porridge and small dishes? When it was close to noon, there were more customers at the snack stall. Only then did Yun Chujio get up and prepare to leave. Although the old couple still had lingering fears, the old man still asked Yun Chujio to come over when she was free. Yun Chujio smiled and her heart suddenly warmed up. Sometimes, a kindness from a stranger often made people feel even warmer. Not long after Yun Chujio walked out, Chu Fong came over. Junior sister Yun, you were too awesome on the stage. You were really amazing. Yun Chujio couldn't be bothered with this pervert. She found an empty space, took out a recliner, and lay down on it. She closed her eyes to rest. Chu Fong rubbed his hands and hesitated for a moment before saying, Junior sister Yun, you are extremely intelligent, you have unparalleled wisdom, you are beautiful and intelligent, you are devastatingly beautiful, you are peerless, speak English. Yun, can you think of a way for me to meet her? Chu Fong said with a red face. Yun Chujio had already guessed Chu Fang's intentions. Seeing that he was at a loss and wished that he could find a hole to hide in, she did not have the heart to tease him anymore. She said with a smile, It's a small matter. Follow me. Chu Fang's eyes immediately lit up. He rubbed his hands and could not help but thank her. Junior sister Yun, thank you very much. Yun Chujio did not reply. She brought Chu Fang to the VIP seats. The VIP seats had special people to deliver food. There was no need to go to those shops and squeeze with others. At this moment, everyone was having lunch. Chu Fang saw Yun Chujio bringing him to the direction of Island Master Chi in a carefree manner. He immediately panicked. Junior sister Yun, where are you taking me? Yun Chujio chuckled. Naturally, I'm going to see Little Moon. But Island Master Chi, Yun Chujio glanced at him. What's wrong with Island Master Chi? Can he eat you or kill you? Are you so afraid of him? There are so many people here. What else can he do even if he's not happy? The braver ones will starve to death. Are you going or not? Chu Fang was rendered speechless. Although he was a little timid, he still followed behind Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio was secretly happy. Indeed, the power of love was very great. The two of them soon arrived at the VIP area. Yun Chujio walked in front of Island Master Chi and said with a smile, Island Master Chi, long time no see. This junior sends his regards to you. Although Island Master Chi had changed his opinion of Yun Chujio a little because of the 6-star Dark Spirit Stone, he still disliked her, not to mention Chu Fang, who was coveting his precious disciple. However, he would never hit a smiling person. Moreover, he could not go too far in front of so many people. Therefore, he nodded and did not say anything. Seeing the situation, Yun Chujio said with a smile, Island Master Chi, I haven't talked to Little Moon for a long time. I'm going to take her for a walk. You won't object, right? Before Island Master Chi could say anything, Hei Shinjio continued, I guess that you would agree. Why would an amiable elder like you stop our little sisters from whispering? Little Moon, what are you still standing there for? Come on, let's go for a walk. Please visit P Alpha Alpha-1. And Island Master Chi's nose nearly went crooked from anger. He didn't agree at all right? She was talking to herself, but she had blocked her words. He couldn't possibly slap his own face, right? When he came back to his senses, he only saw the backs of the three little ones, especially Chu Fong, who was so close to his precious disciple. He was simply asking for a beating. Island Master Chi was gnashing his teeth in hatred. Chu Fong was simply too beautiful. His little heart was like a happy little rabbit, constantly fluttering. He clearly had a lot to say to Xiao Yu, but he only stammered, You seem to have put on a little weight. Xiao Yu's face sank with a thud. She glared at him fiercely and took 2 steps forward to catch up with Yun Chujio, who was in front of her. She was clearly angry. Hei Shinjio was speechless. Was this Chu Fong stupid? No girl liked to be called fat, alright? Chu Fong was dumbfounded. Heaven and earth. His original intention was to say that Xiao Yu looked much better and more beautiful than when she was trapped in Ghost City, but he did not know why she said that. He wished he could slap himself twice. This mouth was even dumber than his feet. In his anxiety, he hurriedly said, I didn't mean that. I meant, you are much better looking than before. You are 100 times better looking than junior sister Yun. Roel Fidialfra knew, Omdamit. Burn the bridge after crossing the river, right? Kill the mill, kill the what? You wait. Hei Shinjio was extremely angry, but the corners of Xiao Yu's mouth curled up slightly. Clearly, she was very satisfied with Chu Fong saying that she was prettier than Hei Shinjio. Hei Shinjio was so angry. Roel Fidialfra knew, this fellow couldn't be bothered to look at their affectionate little eyes. He snorted coldly, A pair of ingrates, scram to the side and don't loiter in front of my eyes. Chu Fong was now filled with affection, and he treated Yun Chujio's words as a breeze as he obediently accompanied Xiao Yu to the side to talk. Hei Shinjio felt stifled as she looked at their backs. She wasn't really angry, but she thought of her ungrateful fiancé. Chu Fong was the perfect match for a boyfriend, alright? Fawning over her sweetheart in front of her in all sorts of ways, but what about her ungrateful gigolo? She would always be as calm as an old well when she had nothing to do. Damn it, this time, she would definitely make him suffer. The old man lay on the recliner and rested for a while in a huff. When the sword tasting session started again in the afternoon, he strolled to the wonton stall. The old couple had most likely adjusted their mood, so they were a little more relaxed than in the morning. They began to chat casually with Yun Chujio. The old man saw that Yun Chujio was no different from before, so he was not so reserved. He even asked Yun Chujio to take out the big black pot to open his eyes. Yun Chujio did not pretend and immediately took out the big black pot. The old man looked at it and clicked his tongue in wonder. This 1,000-year-old black iron pot is really different. It looks very sturdy. I think the wonton effect will be good if you use this pot. The old lady pinched him. You haven't shut your mouth for a whole day. How can the little fairy's pot be used to cook wontons? Hurry up and get to work. The old man was not angry after being scolded. He chuckled and began to cook wontons. Yun Chujio said with a smile, This pot was originally used for cooking. Why can't I cook wontons? Please visit P Alpha Alpha-1. And this fellow was also bored. He actually took down the original pot and put his big black pot on the fire. The old lady quickly stopped him, but the old man was happily washing the pot and adding water. Clearly, he wanted to see how different a 1,000-year-old black iron pot was from an ordinary pot. However, the three of them were soon dumbfounded. Because even though the fire below was very hot, the water in the big black pot did not change at all, let alone boil. The three of them looked at each other in dismay. In the end, the old man said, Little fairy, your pot is most likely extraordinary. You'd better not waste it. Hei Shinjio was also dumbfounded. It was just an ordinary pot to begin with. Could it be that it had turned into a spirit after being repaired with 1,000-year-old black iron? Although the old man was very surprised, he said with a smile on his face, "I guess this thing is in a bad mood today, so it's in a bad mood." The old man, the old lady, the old man was very sensible. He did not talk about the big black pot anymore. Instead, he told Hei Shinjio some interesting stories about the previous sword technique conference, which Hei Shinjio listened to with great interest. That night, after Yun Chujio returned to the inn, the first thing she did was to take out the big black pot and study it. The old man even bared his teeth and dripped a drop of blood on the big black pot, but there was no reaction. Hei Xinjia's joy instantly turned into embarrassment and anger. Damn it, she thought it was some treasure, but now it looked like it was just a broken pot. This fellow put away the big black pot in a bad mood and then threw this matter to the back of his mind. The next day, the second part of the sword technique conference, lecture, began. This lecture was not about cultivation methods, but sword techniques. Usually, it was explained by the people from the Nameless Sword sect and the Flying Flower Island. After all, these two sects in the northern continent were among the best in sword techniques. Of course, they would not be so foolish as to explain their sect's top secret sword techniques to everyone. They would only choose some simple sword techniques. Even so, the explanations of these mighty figures would enlighten some itinerant cultivators. After the explanations, they could ask questions and the mighty figures would patiently answer them. Therefore, the number of people who came the next day was much more than the first day. Hei Shinjio still went to the old couple's wonton stall to hide. The old couple was happy to have someone to talk to them, and they got along very well. At this time, the elders of the Nameless Sword sect were already on the high platform, giving a speech that was easy to understand. Some of the itinerant cultivators below could not help but nod. The old man smiled and said, "Every year at the Sword Technique Conference, the speeches of your sect and the Flying Flower Island are very popular. This is the foundation of a large sect." Yun Chujio humbly exchanged a few words with the old man. The old man thought that the Nameless Sword sect was not bad. Although there were some troubling matters, it still provided her with protection. As far as she was able, she would naturally do her best to protect the reputation of the sect. After the elder of the Nameless Sword sect finished his explanation, Elder Jia of the Flying Flower Island continued to explain. Yun Chujio had a good impression of this Elder Jia. When they were in Ghost City, when Island Master Qi and Elder Duanmu had conflicts, it was this Elder Jia who mediated. After Elder Jia finished his explanation, he began to patiently answer everyone's questions. At this moment, a sharp voice said, "Humph! Forget it. The so-called speeches of your Flying Flower Island and the Nameless Sword sect are nothing more than fishing for fame. What kind of bullshit are they talking about? Please visit P-Alpha-1. Co. As soon as these words were said, everyone's eyes turned to look at the person who spoke. They saw that it was an old man with a pair of triangular eyes that flickered with a cold light. San Jiaoyan. Although Elder Jia was very displeased in his heart, he did not say anything and intended to ignore this person. After all, there was no need to delay the progress of the Sword Technique Conference for such a thing. Roelfa Dielfra knew, however, it's also true. If I had to say it, the sword techniques of your two sects are also mediocre sword techniques. They are not worth mentioning at all. No matter how well-mannered Elder Jia was, he could not stand it anymore. He said coldly, "Who are you? What are your motives for spouting nonsense here?" That person sneered and said, "Don't bother about who I am. I'm telling the truth. Everyone, do you think what I said makes sense? Their Nameless Sword sect and the Flying Flower Island are just treating everyone as fools." Soon, someone chimed in, "That's right. When you put it that way, it's true. Every time you talk about sword techniques, it's very ordinary. You even boast that you're from a famous sect. How embarrassing. Right? Every time you answer questions, you avoid the important points and make light of them. You even say that you'll naturally understand it when your cultivation is higher. Isn't that nonsense? If you don't want to give a real speech, then say it out loud. You're fooling people with those flowery postures. You're really treating us as fools. Forget it, let's stop talking. How can we compete with sects like the Nameless Sword Sect and the Flying Flower Island? Whether it was Elder Jia on the stage or Island Master Qi and Master Ouyang in the VIP seats, all of them had ugly expressions on their faces. Well, no matter who was being pointed at and scolded, they wouldn't have a good expression. However, they couldn't do anything about it. Otherwise, it would confirm their reputation of using their power to bully others. Elder Jia thought that these people would give up after a few words, so he just pretended not to hear it. Who would have thought that more and more people would say sarcastic words, and it would be more and more unpleasant to hear? The situation had already gone out of control. Although He Xinjiu, who was sitting at the wonton stall, had a good impression of Elder Jia, it was not to the point where she stood up for him. Therefore, even though her small face was a little gloomy, she had no intention of stepping up to the stage to help him out. At this moment, the old man from the beginning pointed his finger at her again. Everyone, these big sects are going too far. Let's not talk about what happened yesterday. That He Hongchuan only stole the limelight from the Nameless Sword Sect, but he was killed by that Yun Chujio. What kind of unreasonable behavior was this? What kind of vicious heart was this? Their Nameless Sword Sect would never allow others to be stronger than them. Once there was someone stronger than them, they would use all sorts of reasons to kill them. If that Yun Chujio was killed by He Hongchuan yesterday, would the Nameless Sword Sect pretend that nothing had happened? They are relying on the strong to bully the weak. They disregard human lives. As soon as the old man's words left his mouth, many people who thought that they were righteous immediately chimed in. You're right. I wanted to say it yesterday. That Yun Chujio is too vicious. Isn't it just a contest of swords? She actually killed He Hongchuan. She's too vicious at such a young age. Also, what ancestral teachings she said are even more unreasonable. If someone offends me, he'll take his dog life? Does she treat everyone else like dogs? I heard that Yun Chujio used to be the southern continent's female emperor of Zephyr. A girl actually became some female emperor. One look and you can tell that she's not a decent person. She might have done some shameless things in private. As these words fell into He Xinjius' ears, the killing intent on He Xinjius' body became more and more intense. The old couple was trembling so much that they were like fallen leaves in the wind. Please visit P-alpha-1. Co. MIF she could endure being ridiculed like this, then she would not be He Xinjiu. Yun Chujio stood up and was about to leave when the old man asked with concern, Little fairy, what are you going to do? Yun Chujio restrained the killing intent on her body and said to the old couple, The two of you help me cook a bowl of wontons. Leave me to eat when I come back. I'll go and talk to the trash. I'll be right back. The corners of Yun Chujio's mouth curled up. In the book, there was a story about warm wine beheading Hua Xiong. Today, she would have a hot wonton torturing the crowd. P-alpha no one. At this moment, someone saw Yun Chujio. Immediately, everyone's gaze fell on Yun Chujio. There were also some people who used malicious language to curse. There were even some who threatened to kill the people. Master Ouyang and the others in the VIP seats had a change in expression. They immediately ordered the Nameless Sword Sect's disciples to protect Yun Chujio, so that she wouldn't really be beaten up by the crowd. They also had some complaints in their hearts. Why was she joining in the fun at this time? Wasn't she deliberately looking for trouble? Chu Feng and Xiao Yu were the first to arrive in front of Yun Chujio. Xiao Yu said in a bad mood, Where are you going? Follow me to the VIP seats and sit down. Yun Chujio faintly smiled. What are you going to the VIP seats for? I have a clear conscience, so there's naturally no need to hide. I want to see who dares to touch me. Yun Chujio took out a large kitchen knife as she spoke, then she pointed at the person who was shouting the loudest and said, You, right, it's you. Didn't you want to beat me up? Come, let's spar. If you don't dare to accept the challenge, you'll be a turtle bastard. The crowd clearly did not expect Yun Chujio to be so arrogant at this point in time. For a moment, it became much quieter. Although the person pointed at by Yun Chujio was a little timid, Yun Chujio did not dare to do anything to him under the watchful eyes of the crowd. She said arrogantly, "It's not that I don't dare to accept the challenge, it's just that I don't want to fight with you. You vicious bitch, sooner or later someone will take care of you." Yun Chujio laughed lightly and said, "Get out of the way. I'll have a good talk with him." These bystanders were like grass on the fence. They had been cursing and shouting together. If they really got serious, they would all move back. What a joke. This Yun Chujio killed people just because she said so. If she were to slash them, how could they argue? Therefore, the crowd made a path. Yun Chujio walked in front of the man with a large kitchen knife. Yun Chujio sized up the man and said, "Don't say that I'm bullying you. Apologize right now and I'll pretend that nothing happened. Otherwise, I'll bleed you to clear your head." When the man saw that Yun Chujio was serious, he immediately became a little timid. However, he still felt that Yun Chujio would not make a move, so he shouted, "Yun Chujio, don't think that you're so great just because you're a disciple of the Nameless Sword sect. Who do you think you are?" Before he could finish his words, Yun Chujio's large kitchen knife was placed on his neck. This person was just an itinerant cultivator. Even if Yun Chujio was just a small fry in the Nameless Sword sect, it was still effortless for her to deal with him. Roelfadielfra knew, the man was no longer as arrogant as before. He thought that a super sect like the Nameless Sword sect would definitely cherish their feathers and have a lot of scruples. Who would have thought that Yun Chujio was a fucking female bandit? While he was hesitating, Yun Chujio's kitchen knife cut his neck again. The man quickly said, "Apologize, apologize, I apologize. I was talking nonsense. I'm sorry. Please visit P-Alpha-Alpha-1. Co. Yun Chujio snorted coldly and let go of the man. He was just a Tom, Dick, and Harry. Her target was not him, she just wanted to take care of him. With this incident, the people who were shouting earlier immediately quieted down. However, there were still some people who were shouting. Yun Chujio glanced at them and did not say anything. Instead, she walked towards the old man with triangular eyes who had fanned the flames previously, Sanjiaoyan. The old man with triangular eyes was clearly much calmer than the person from before. His face was filled with ridicule. Yun Chujio walked in front of him and said indifferently, "This hypocrite, you actually have a belly full of big principles. Why don't we go on stage and talk about it?" Xiao Yu, who was following behind Yun Chujio, couldn't help but laugh out loud. Hypocrite. This trash's mouth was really sarcastic. The triangular-eyed old man glanced at Yun Chujio with a gloomy expression and sneered, "This is also good. It's just nice to let the people of the world see the true colors of the so-called famous sects like Sanjiaoyan." The crowd automatically opened a path, and Yun Chujio and the triangular-eyed old man jumped onto the high platform one after the other. Elder Jia did not know what Yun Chujio was up to. He looked at Yun Chujio with an inquisitive look. Yun Chujio took out a chair and smiled. "Elder Jia, please sit by the side and wait for me for a while. If this hypocrite can't win against me, he might shamelessly attack me. When the time comes, please help me take care of him and kill him." Elder Jia. Chapter 42-46 Beggars still find it smelly. Although Elder Jia was a little confused, he still took the chair and sat to the side. Yun Chujio then said to Sanjiaoyan, "Come, hypocrite, repeat what you said just now." Sanjiaoyan's face was gloomy as he repeated what he had said before, and his words were even more intense, attracting the support of many onlookers. Yun Chujio waited for him to finish his sentence. She slowly took out her teacup and sipped a few mouthfuls of tea before saying, "Come, let's go through them one by one. First, you said that the so-called teachings of the Nameless Sword sect and the Flying Flower Island are just for fame. The sword techniques taught are all trash. Tiki, there's a very unpleasant sentence that I'm willing to say, but it's the most suitable to be used here. That is, beggars still find it smelly." As soon as Yun Chujio finished her sentence, the people below immediately started to shout in dissatisfaction, "Yun Chujio, you've gone too far. Who are you calling beggars? Great, so you big sects have always treated us as beggars. You've really gone too far." Elder Jia wished that he could go up and shut Yun Chujio's mouth. "Are you fucking here to help us? The triangular-eyed old man had a look of contempt on his face. This Yun Chujio was nothing more than San Jiaoyan. After everyone's voices quieted down slightly, Yun Chujio said indifferently, "Were you all very angry just now? Did you think that my words were very unpleasant? However, the words that you said about our nameless sword sect and the Flying Flower Island were several times more unpleasant than this. It was even more chilling than this. We're fishing for fame." Everyone in the northern continent knew about the nameless sword sect and the Flying Flower Island. Why would we waste manpower and resources to come here and advertise? Besides, you should all know that even the disciples of our nameless sword sect, the sword techniques practiced by the outer disciples, inner disciples, and true disciples were all different. This wasn't looking down on anyone. It's not that we look down on outer sect disciples. It's that the higher the level of sword techniques, the higher the requirements for one's aptitude, spiritual power, and comprehension. If we really teach the sword techniques that the inner sect disciples practice to the outer sect disciples, it's not because we look down on them, but because we're harming them. If we're not careful, we'll suffer a backlash or even suffer from chi deviation. And although there's no lack of people with high spiritual power, most of them shouldn't be a match for the inner sect disciples of large sects, right? If we were to teach you high-level sword techniques rashly, if you were to go mad or suffer a backlash from your sword techniques, wouldn't we be charged with intentional murder? When everyone heard Yun Chujio's words, they couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed because what Yun Chujio said was the truth. Even though they were all disciples of the nameless sword sect, the sword techniques they practiced were different. Moreover, many of them weren't even as good as the outer sect disciples, let alone the inner sect disciples. Yun Chujio continued, "Also, even if we don't have those considerations from before, the sect has its own rules. If all the sword techniques can be casually taught to outsiders, would that be fair to the disciples in the sect? Ignoring the others, I only joined the nameless sword sect after going through a narrow escape. If you can learn the nameless sword sect's high-tier sword techniques so easily, would I still take the risk to take the test? I don't know what those hecklers are thinking. Do they think that the various sects will stupidly pass on all their treasures to you just because you heckled? Or are you simply harboring evil intentions and trying to turn this sword technique conference into the final realm?" Chapter 42-47 Red-eyed green-furred turtle Yun Chujio's tone suddenly became stern. "If the sword technique conference doesn't take place, who will suffer the greatest loss? Don't you have any idea? They just casually put some bait, and you're going to take the bait? Where's your brain? If the sword technique conference doesn't take place, be it the nameless sword sect or the Flying Flower Island, it will still be the 6 great sections. However, you will never have the chance to see a high-quality sword again, and you will never have the chance to hear a lecture from a mighty figure. And you will never have the channels to get answers from them. Is this the result you want?" Everyone was dumbfounded when they heard this. That's right, was this the result they wanted? If the sword technique conference was no longer held, wouldn't they become the ultimate victims? Hence, everyone glared angrily at the hecklers, completely forgetting that they were also accomplices in the past. The triangular-eyed old man did not expect Yun Chujio to turn the situation around so quickly. Just as he was about to say something, Yun Chujio's clear voice rang out again. "San Jiaoying, I'm sorry, but I have to apologize. By the way, this hypocrite is still talking about how I killed He Hongchuan yesterday. I was not willing to defend myself, but now I can only say it. If He Hongchuan did not have the intention to kill me first, I would not have killed him. But he wanted to kill me and I still endured it. That is not kindness in my heart, that is stupidity. As for who said that they didn't see He Hongchuan's intention to kill me, then go back and practice your eyes, or else you'll embarrass yourself. Come, those who didn't see that he wanted to kill me, raise your hands and let me see." The corners of everyone's eyes twitched violently. You already said that you didn't see that it was embarrassing. Who else would be stupid enough to raise their hands? Seeing that no one raised their hands, Yun Chujio nodded in satisfaction and said, "All right, now that the truth has been revealed and our internal conflicts have been resolved, it's time to deal with this hypocrite. Come, hypocrite, tell me, what are you trying to do by going through so much trouble? I just said so much, but you didn't say a word. It's obvious that you have a guilty conscience. Do people like you not like to see others being good? Do you have the red-eye disease? If you have a disease, you should take your medicine. Don't come out and bark, or else you'll get beaten up. The old man with the triangular eyes was so angry that he almost died. How could he not have anything to say? He clearly wanted to speak a few times, but he was suppressed by Yun Chujia's swift speed and clear voice. San Jiaoyan. With a gloomy face, he said coldly, Yun Chujio, you've said so much. After all, your nameless sword sect is still bullying others. Everyone is just afraid of revenge, so they don't dare to make a sound. Yun Chujio curled the corner of her mouth. I've explained it clearly and with sufficient evidence. You actually said that I'm bullying others? It seems that you're being unreasonable. Since you said so, fine, then I'm bullying others with my power. I'm just vicious. What do you want to do? Do you want to eliminate evil for the people? Come on, if you don't dare to make a move, you'll be a green-furred turtle. The kind of green-furred turtle? The veins on the triangular-eyed old man's forehead were popping up. Obviously, he was extremely angry. He wished that he could kill Yun Chujio with a slap. However, there was still Elder Jia who was eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey. The triangular-eyed old man gritted his teeth and said coldly, Yun Chujio, let's wait and see. Justice is on the side. There will always be a time for you to get your retribution. Yun Chujio sneered, the law of heaven is clear? If there really is such a thing as retribution, then it should be a heavenly lightning strike to kill a red-eyed green-furred turtle like you. Boom! A heavenly lightning strike descended from the sky. Chapter 42-48 was about to vomit blood from He Xinjia's words. Even in his dreams, the triangular-eyed old man did not expect to be struck by lightning. He was struck squarely by it. Although he did not suffer any serious injuries, he was clearly stunned by the shock. The scene was deathly silent. At this moment, everyone was thinking, is this Yun Chujio a jinx? Why was the triangular-eyed old man struck by lightning with just a casual remark from San Jiaoyan? Or could it be that the triangular-eyed old man really had bad intentions, so he suffered retribution? Yun Chujio was also very confused. Okay? Her jinx skill was sometimes effective and sometimes not. After careful calculation, it seemed that she had not appeared for a long time. Today, she actually reappeared in the martial arts world? However, what was the key point for her jinx skill to trigger? However, this guy would naturally not let go of such a good opportunity. He immediately put on a swindler's expression and said, Hypocrite, I advise you to turn over a new leaf in the future. Otherwise, I'm afraid it won't be a bolt of lightning. You might even be turned into ashes. The triangular-eyed old man was shocked, afraid, and hateful at the same time. For a moment, he was actually unable to say a word. He gave Yun Chujio a vicious glance and jumped off the high platform. Everyone came back to their senses and gave him another round of sarcasm. What hypocrite! What green-eyed turtle! The triangular-eyed old man only felt his head buzzing. His chest felt stuffy and he spat out a mouthful of blood. After swallowing a few pills, he left in a hurry. Seeing this, Yun Chujio said to Elder Jia with a smile, Elder Jia, please continue with your lecture. Give me back my chair. It's quite expensive. Elder Jia. He was convinced that Yun Chujio was stingy to this extent. However, he was convinced by Yun Chujia's eloquence. Just by relying on her eloquence, she was able to make the arrogant San Jiaoyan old man vomit blood. It was simply heaven-defying. Yun Chujio put away her chair and jumped off the high platform. The crowd automatically made way for her. On one hand, she was a little embarrassed. On the other hand, it was because of the heavenly lightning just now. If she provoked this guy, she would casually make another heavenly lightning bolt. But there was nowhere to cry. Yun Chujio jumped to the wonton stall. She said with a smile, Old man, my wontons aren't cold, right? How is it? I came back pretty quickly, right? If I didn't clean up the scum who scolded me halfway, I would definitely be faster than now. The old couple had just been watching the show and had no time to cook wontons. Now that they heard her question, They quickly began to cook wontons. The old man praised Yun Chujio and said, "It's strange. Why is the person from yesterday and today so bold? In the past, no one dared to offend the 6 great sects so brazenly." The speaker had no intention of listening. Yun Chujio frowned, then stood up and left in a hurry. The old couple looked baffled and could only stare at Yun Chujio's back in a daze. Yun Chujio soon arrived at the VIP seats. She didn't avoid it and said to Master Ouyang directly, "Master Ouyang, I feel that something is unusual." Whether it was He Hongchuan yesterday or San Jiaoyan today, they were not just looking for trouble. Could they have been ordered by someone? Master Ouyang and the others were also a little suspicious. The blood-devouring sword that He Hongchuan had brought out wasn't an ordinary sword. If he didn't have a motive, he wouldn't have brought it out so casually, and he wouldn't have cut Elder Duanma's treasured sword in half. There was also that San Jiaoyan elder. He was obviously inciting everyone to target the Nameless Sword sect and the Flying Flower Island, and even the 6 great sections. Could they really have been instigated by someone? Chapter 42-49, Humiliation. Master Ouyang, Island Master Qi, and the others discussed for a while before sending people to investigate the whereabouts of San Jiaoyan while searching for some clues. However, they didn't obtain any results. Everyone thought, could it be that they were thinking too much? The next few days were all sword techniques competitions and nothing abnormal happened. Everyone put the previous matters aside for the time being. He Xinjiao was not the least bit interested in sword techniques competitions. On the last day of the sword technique conference, Xiao Yu went up the high platform with full confidence. Xiao Yu won 3 rounds in a row and was defeated by Zhuang Hong in the end. Zhuang Hong had been very unlucky recently. The last time in the Bewilderment Shadow Forest, he was badly injured by the group of iron-armored blood lizards. This time, he was finally able to hold his head up high and was naturally very smug. Although Master Ouyang was very dissatisfied with Zhuang Hong's arrogance, seeing that he had won a few rounds in a row, his mood was still pretty good. No matter what, it was good that he had won. At this moment, a middle-aged man leaped onto the competition stage. Zhuang Hong sized up the middle-aged man a few times. He saw that the middle-aged man was at the 3rd layer of the nirvana of the spirit, while he was at the 4th layer of the nirvana of the spirit. His gaze revealed some disdain. "You really want to compete with me? Your spiritual power is inferior to mine, and your swordsmanship can't be compared to mine. I advise you to just admit defeat," Zhuang Hong said arrogantly. The middle-aged man revealed a hint of a cold smile. "If you can't beat me in a fight, then we'll talk about it after we fight." Zhuang Hong curled his lips. "Since you're asking for humiliation, then I'll grant you your wish." The two of them drew their swords and engaged in a fierce battle. In the beginning, Zhuang Hong had the absolute advantage, forcing the middle-aged man to the edge of the high platform several times. However, the situation quickly reversed, and the middle-aged man's sword technique suddenly became sharp. No matter what moves Zhuang Hong used, he was firmly restrained by the other party and soon fell into a disadvantageous position. The arrogance on Zhuang Hong's face had turned into panic. It shouldn't be. He used the space-shattering sword technique. Although it couldn't compare to the nameless sword technique that the elders practiced, it was still one of the best sword techniques. How could it be suppressed by the other party? Master Ouyang's expression changed slightly. He knew that Zhuang Hong was bound to lose. To be honest, although the middle-aged man's sword technique attainment wasn't bad, it wasn't that great. If Elder Duanmu and the others were to make a move, they could easily defeat him. But the problem was that the sword technique conference didn't allow the elders to step onto the stage. The Nameless Sword sect had lost a lot of face this time. Zhuang Hong, as the successor disciple of the sect leader, had actually been defeated by a rogue cultivator. If this news were to spread out, he would have no face to face anyone in the future. A moment later, Zhuang Hong's right leg was stabbed by the middle-aged man, and he directly knelt on one leg on the stage. The middle-aged man then stabbed Zhuang Hong's left leg, and Zhuang Hong firmly knelt in front of the middle-aged man. The successor disciple of the Nameless Sword sect's sect leader is only SOSO. You've lost, go down. that person said disdainfully, and did not make another move. Zhuang Hong was angry, embarrassed, and a little unwilling. When he thought of the embarrassing situation he would face when he returned to the sect, he almost wanted to die. Master Ouyang's expression was very ugly. That person deliberately stabbed Zhuang Hong's legs, which was to humiliate Zhuang Hong and the Nameless Sword sect. Although he was very angry, he could not leave Zhuang Hong on the stage and ignore him. He immediately got Chu Fang and the others to help Zhuang Hong down from the stage. When the middle-aged man saw Zhuang Hong being helped down from the stage, he said coldly, "Is there anyone else who wants to compete? Even the successor disciple of the Nameless Sword sect's sect master is no match for me. I reckon that no one would dare to come up and challenge me, right? If not, the champion of this sword technique conference will be me." Chapter 4250. I am the last disciple of the master of the sect. Although Zhuang Hong was arrogant, he was one of the best among the successive disciples. Since he had already lost, the others would naturally not go up and suffer. Wan Qingba's spiritual power was higher than Zhuang Hong's, but he did not come this time, so none of the other successive disciples went up on the stage. Master Ouyang's face was so gloomy that it was about to drip. Although Xiao Yu from the Flying Flower Island had lost, the Flying Flower Island wasn't famous for sword arts, so it didn't matter. However, their Nameless Sword sect was different. It could be imagined that if such news was spread out, their Nameless Sword sect would simply make people laugh their heads off. Hei Xinjiu, who was watching the show at the wonton stall, rolled her eyes. A sinister smile suddenly appeared on her face, and she hopped out of the wonton stall. Yun Chujio squeezed through the crowd and arrived at the bottom of the stage. Just as the host was about to announce the results of the competition, she hurriedly shouted, Wait, I want to compete with him." Master Ouyang and the others were dumbfounded when they saw Yun Chujio step onto the stage. Wasn't she just rushing up to get beaten up? Even Zhuang Hong was no match for that middle-aged man. How could a small fry like her defeat the strong? That middle-aged man sized up Yun Chujio and said, "Even the successor disciple of your Nameless Sword sect's sect master is no match for me. You, a trash at the second level of the spirit realm, want to compete with me?" Yun Chujio said with a smile, "So what if I'm at the second level of the spirit realm? Although I'm at the second level of the spirit realm, I'm still the successor disciple of the sect master. Moreover, I'm the last disciple. The sect master's sword technique has already been passed down to me. That Zhuang Hong is just a decoration." Master Ouyang almost fell to the ground when he heard that. When did he take her in as a successor disciple? Closed-door disciple? Nonsense. Shameless. Island Master Qi was also stunned. He looked at the stiff-faced Master Ouyang curiously. "Master Ouyang, did you really take that Yun Chujio in as a closed-door disciple? If that's the case, you can't take in other disciples in the future." Master Ouyang's heart was like a beeping dog. What bullshit last disciple? He had never taken her in at all, okay? However, he couldn't directly deny that Yun Chujio was a disciple of the Nameless Sword sect and had told such a big lie in front of everyone. In the end, the Nameless Sword sect was still the one who lost face. After all, that little girl was famous for being thick-skinned. Moreover, he still had a sliver of hope in his heart. If Yun Chujio could really defeat that middle-aged man, she could announce to the public that she was his disciple and save some face. Therefore, he pretended not to hear Island Master Qi's words and did not say anything. In this way, he could attack, retreat, and defend. He would wait until the end of the competition to see the result. On the stage, Hei Xinjiu saw that Master Ouyang did not jump out to deny her words. She was very happy in her heart. She had been worried that the old man, Master Ouyang, would not let her go. Now, she would kill him first and report to him later. Once the rice is cooked, the rice is cooked. Zhuang Hong, who was recuperating, heard Yun Chujio's words and was about to retort when Chu Fang, who was standing next to him, reacted quickly and knocked him out with a hand knife. Elder Gu saw everything clearly, and the corner of his eyes twitched. This disciple of his had always followed the rules and never done anything out of line. Now, he actually dared to plot against Zhuang Hong. He must have been led astray by that little girl, Yun Chujio. The middle-aged man on the competition stage was also shocked. However, he quickly said with disdain, "Is there no one left in your nameless sword sect, or is your sect master blind?" He actually took in a good-for-nothing like you as his last disciple. Chapter 4251 Sword Genius. I'm in a good mood now, so I won't argue with you. Come, let's do it. I'll poke a few holes in your body, and then you can go back for dinner. Yun Chujio smiled like a flower. There was nothing she could do, she was in such a good mood. The middle-aged man snorted. You're boasting shamelessly. Since you're courting death, then you can't blame me. As soon as the middle-aged man finished his words, the sword in his hand stabbed towards Yun Chujio. Yo, you're really shameless. You actually attacked without saying anything. Fortunately, as the last disciple of the sect leader, I didn't give it to you for free. Otherwise, I would have really fallen into your trap, Hei Shinjio said with a smile as she dodged. This guy's heart was black. She deliberately mentioned the matter of the last disciple time and time again. Even if it was fake, it had to become real. The middle-aged man naturally did not know the twists and turns here. He had only one goal, and that was to kill Yun Chujio. Therefore, his sword moves became more and more fierce, even more fierce than when he was dealing with Zhuang Hong. Although Yun Chujio was laughing and laughing on the surface, she did not dare to relax the slightest bit in her heart. If she were to fight seriously, her spiritual power was too low and she had almost no chance of winning. She had to find another way to do it. She remembered that when she was competing with Liao Tao, she had defeated her opponent at the critical moment by using her sword intent. Now that she had mastered 3 layers of sword intent, if she could successfully stack them, she could totally trick her opponent. However, before that, she had to try the slow sword intent that she had just comprehended. Thinking of this, Yun Chujio's movement technique was still very fast, but her sword moves had become slow. There was almost no movement to attack, and she had been relying on her movement technique to dodge. The crowd below the stage discussed animatedly, although this Yun Chujio's movement technique is exceptionally fast, but after dodging and dodging like this, the final result is still certain to be a loss. TSK, a second level and third level of Lingji can't be compared at all, okay? I don't know how the nameless sword sect's Master Ouyang took in such a trash disciple, but I've never heard that she was Master Ouyang's last disciple before. This is still hard to understand. Such a useless disciple, how could Master Ouyang have the face to be someone else? If this Yun Chujio wasn't the last disciple of Master Ouyang, how could she act so arrogantly? I heard that she used the talisman to blow up many successive disciples. Master Ouyang's heart was on fire in the VIP seats. On one hand, he was angry because of Yun Chujio's shamelessness. On the other hand, he hoped that Yun Chujio could create a miracle. But could she really do it? As he watched, Master Ouyang's face revealed a shocked expression. He saw that Yun Chujio's slow thrusts were all flaws of the middle-aged man. Not only that, Yun Chujio's body was already surrounded by sword intent. Could this be the legendary slow sword intent that was difficult to comprehend? At the same time, the others also realized this. Elder Gu exclaimed, "It's the slow sword intent." She actually comprehended the slow sword intent. Heavens, this little girl had already comprehended the chaotic sword intent and the fast sword intent. She actually comprehended the slow sword intent in such a short period of time. Doesn't that mean that she has already grasped 3 types of sword intent? She really is a genius in sword arts. Sectmaster, as expected, your eyes are as sharp as torches. Elder Duanmu was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. He had clearly taken a liking to this little girl first, alright? However, she was still unable to infuse her sword intent into her body, so she had not accepted her as a disciple. If she had known this would happen, she would have struck first. Chapter 4252 was the first place Elder Duanmu remembered that he had once defeated Yun Chujio. He said that the fast sword intent and the slow sword intent were opposites. It was impossible for a person to master both sword intents at the same time. He suddenly felt his face hurt. However, although Master Ouyang and the others were surprised by Yun Chujia's talent, they still felt that there was almost no hope for her to win. After all, the difference in spiritual power was too big. The middle-aged man thought the same. Although he was surprised that Yun Chujio had mastered the slow sword intent, he was not too worried. He felt that it was only a matter of time before she won. As expected, as time passed, Yun Chujio's movement began to slow down. She could not even maintain her sword intent. She was forced to retreat by the middle-aged man. At this moment, Yun Chujio's forehead was full of sweat. She began to gasp for breath. Anyone would think that she was already at the end of her rope and would be defeated soon. At this moment, Yun Chujio lost her balance and fell to the ground. The middle-aged man's eyes flashed with viciousness as he stabbed the sword in his hand towards Yun Chujio. Master Ouyang and the others stood up in shock. Even if they wanted to save her, it was too late. It was over. Even if the little girl didn't die, she would probably be seriously injured. Elder Dongfang's eyes flashed. He remembered the last time when Yun Chujio and Liao Tao fought. It was very similar to this scene. At that time, Yun Chujio used the superposition of sword intent to block Liao Tao's attack. This time, it should be possible. However, he didn't know if she could superposition 3 layers of sword intent. At this moment, the middle-aged man's sword tip was only 3 feet away from Yun Chujio, but it was blocked by a layer of sword intent that seemed to have substance. The middle-aged man's lips curled into a cold smile. A mere sword intent still wanted to block him? Dream on. He increased his strength, and the sword tip quickly pierced through the sword intent. Just when he thought he was about to succeed, the sword tip was blocked by another layer of sword intent, and it was even stronger than the previous sword intent. His face revealed a stunned expression. What was going on? Just as he was stunned, he stumbled. Before he could react, Yun Chujio's sword had already pierced his left chest. Yun Chujio did not use a large kitchen knife in this competition. Although the large kitchen knife was powerful, it was too short. She was at a disadvantage when fighting with the sword wielder, so she casually took out a sword. The middle-aged man's reaction was fast enough. He jumped out of Yun Chujio's attack range almost the instant he was stabbed by Yun Chujio. Although he was unwilling, he was already injured. Even if he fought again, he would not be Yun Chujio's opponent. Therefore, he said coldly, "I admit defeat. We will meet again." After the middle-aged man finished speaking, he did not wait for Yun Chujio to reply. He directly jumped down the high platform and squeezed out of the crowd to leave in a hurry. Yun Chujio wanted to go down the platform to chase after San Jiaoyan because she felt that this person was very likely to be on the same side as the old man with the triangular eyes. However, she was stopped by the host. The host asked if there were still people who wanted to challenge her. If there weren't any, the first place in this sword technique conference would be Yun Chujio. The onlookers shook their heads like rattledrums. Although this Yun Chujio's spiritual power wasn't that great, her swordsmanship was indeed not bad. Most importantly, she had a belly full of evil water. It was better not to provoke her. Moreover, she was the last disciple of Master Ouyang. With this guy's character, if he offended her, he might not necessarily take revenge. In the end, He Xinjiu became the champion of this year's sword technique conference. Chapter 4253 confirmed her identity. He Xinjiu also felt that she was pretty awesome. She was originally just a bystander, but in the end, she became the champion. Don't you think it's infuriating? At this time, Zhuang Hong had already woken up. When he saw Yun Chujio, who was smiling like a flower on the stage, he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. It was one thing for Yun Chujio to steal his limelight, but she actually shamelessly claimed that she was Master's last disciple? He would never let her have her way. Thus, he shouted in exasperation, "All of you have been deceived by her. She is not my Master's last disciple at all. She is lying." Zhuang Hong's words immediately caused an uproar, and Master Ouyang nearly fainted from anger. Originally, it would have been fine if no one brought this matter up again. When the time came, he would pretend to be muddle-headed, and Yun Chujio, a mere disciple, could not really force him. But now, this fool actually shouted out again. Wasn't this forcing him to admit it? Not admit it? What a joke. Yun Chujio finally managed to pick up the reputation of the broken nameless sword sect. Could it be that he wanted to slap himself in the face? Thus, before Yun Chujio could say anything, Master Ouyang said coldly, "Everyone, Yun Chujio is indeed my last disciple." As for Zhuang Hong, he was injured so badly that he lost his mind, so he spouted nonsense. "Everyone, don't take it to heart." Zhuang Hong couldn't believe his ears. The master of the sect had really accepted Yun Chujio as his disciple? Under the huge blow, he fainted again. On the stage, Yun Chujio was very happy. Old man Ouyang had confirmed her identity in public, and she had become the successor disciple of the sect master. Beautiful. However, when this fellow saw that the prize was only a few bottles of pills and some spirit stones, he was a little disappointed. However, it was a waste of time anyway, so he just accepted it. After the award ceremony, this year's sword technique conference came to an end. Yun Chujio jumped in front of sect master Ouyang and bowed to her freshly baked master. "Master, little Jiao pays her respects to you." Sect master Ouyang's heart was like a muttering dog. He had heard of people who were forced to accept disciples, but this was the first time he had heard of someone who was forced to be a master. However, under the watchful eyes of everyone, he couldn't say anything. He could only squeeze out an amiable smile and say, "Disciple, you performed well today. Your master is very satisfied." Yun Chujio tilted her head and said with a smile, "Master, since you are so satisfied, shouldn't you reward me with some good things?" Sect Master Ouyang. He knew that he couldn't accept this disciple. He had just accepted it, and now he was asking for something from him. Wouldn't he have to plunder all the good things from me in the future? He wanted to not give it to her, but he couldn't keep his pride. He could only take out a low-grade defensive immortal artifact and give it to Hei Xinjiu. When Hei Xinjiu saw that it was a low-grade immortal artifact, his smile became even brighter. He followed behind Master Ouyang and called him Master sweetly. Elder Duanmu felt sour in his heart. He was so regretful that his intestines turned green. However, since things had come to this point, there was no point in regretting. Yun Chujio originally wanted to greet the old couple who sold wontons, but the old couple was probably worried that there would be too many people at the end of the conference, so they had already packed up and left. This fellow had no choice but to give up. As it was close to evening, most of the people decided to set off the next morning. After arriving at the inn and having dinner, Yun Chujio had just entered her room when Chu Fong came in with a distressed expression. He even specially locked the door from the inside. Yun Chujio looked puzzled. "Senior brother Chu, what's the matter?" Chapter 4254, Seniority Chu Fong only sat on the chair, sighing and not saying a word. Yun Chujio could not help but laugh. "Senior brother Chu, you came here to sigh? If you have nothing else to do, then leave. I'm still waiting for a rest." Chu Fang's mouth opened and closed, he gritted his teeth and said, "Junior sister Yun, Island Master Qi has already spoken. He firmly disagrees with the matter between her and me, saying that she can only marry a disciple of the Flying Flower Island. Moreover, he also said that if he finds out that we are meeting privately in the future, he will expel her from the Flying Flower Island and not acknowledge her as his disciple." Although Yun Chujio knew that Island Master Qi looked down on Chu Fong, she did not expect that he would be so unyielding this time. It seemed that he had made up his mind. Seeing that Yun Chujio did not speak, Chu Fang's heart became even colder. If junior sister Yun could not do anything about it, then there was really nothing he could do. "About this matter of yours, you can't be too hasty. You have to wait for the right time. Besides, he said that you're not allowed to meet in private. Then next time, you can meet openly. That old thing will die of anger." Yun Chujio said with a grin. "Chu Fang, how can this be?" Seeing Chu Fang's hopeless look, Yun Chujio couldn't help but laugh. "Senior brother Chu, don't worry. As long as you coax Little Moon to be happy, that Island Master Qi won't be a problem at all. Sooner or later, he'll agree to your matter." Hearing this, Chu Fang heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Anyway, there was still a long way to go, so he would slowly think of a way in the future. Chu Fong temporarily put this matter aside and forced a smile. Junior sister Yun, I haven't congratulated you yet. You'll be the sect master's last disciple from now on. Yun Chujio said smugly, that's easy to say, that's easy to say. If there's anything in the future, they'll take care of you. However, I found a problem. Should I call Zhuang Hong martial uncle or senior brother in the future? Isn't the way we address each other in the sect a little chaotic? Chu Fong was stunned, but after thinking about it, it was true. The successive disciples of the Nameless Sword sect were not from the same batch of disciples, so they were all successive disciples with different seniority. However, most elders only accepted one disciple, and even if they accepted two disciples, they were all from the same batch of disciples. There was really no example like Zhuang Hong and Yun Chujio. Previously, everyone had called them randomly, and no one had noticed. Moreover, the elders were addressed as so-and-so elders, so it did not involve the issue of seniority. Now that Yun Chujio said this, it did not seem too good. For example, if he addressed Zhuang Hong as Uncle Master Zhuang Hong, wouldn't Zhuang Hong have the same seniority as his master, Elder Gu? It was simply a mess. Yun Chujio curled her lips. It's not that I want to say it, but my master is very busy every day. Naturally, he would not think of such small matters. In the future, I will reluctantly help him. I will handle some of the sex matters. Chu Fong. So after talking for so long, her ultimate goal was to divide the power. However, it was too difficult. Not to mention other things, the sect wouldn't let a female disciple take over the power. No matter how bad junior sister Yun was, she probably wouldn't be able to use it. Just as Chu Fong was thinking. Yun Chujio said sneakily, let's not talk about this first. Senior brother Chu, tell me, how did you hook up with Little Moon? Did you hook up with her after I went missing? Tell me. Chu Fang's face immediately turned red and he mumbled, no, there's nothing to tell. Senior brother Chu, it's not right for you to do this. If you don't tell me some details, how can I help you convince Island Master Chi? Since you don't want to tell me, then fine, I won't care about your matters anymore. Hei Shinjio pouted and said. Chapter 4255 Ex-Fiancé, you're here? Chu Fong saw that Yun Chujio was about to give up, so he quickly said, ill talk. After you disappeared that day, Chu Fong and Yun Chujio began to tell the story of his relationship with Xiaoyu. On the other side, Master Ouyang and the others were drinking tea on the first floor and discussing the sword technique conference. At this moment, a man in white walked in from the door. Master Ouyang and the others were shocked and stood up. There was no other reason. The aura of the person who came was too strong. Even they felt a great sense of danger. Master Ouyang and the others did not have the time to look at the man's appearance. The man's cold voice sounded, I am Yun Chujio's fiancé. Where is she? Everyone was dumbfounded. What the hell? Yun Chujio's fiancé? He was Yun Chujio's fiancé? In the past, they had heard that little girl brag about how awesome her fiancé was. At that time, everyone thought that she was bragging. They thought that she was simply stupid to give up Tower Master Luchen for her so-called fiancé. However, now that they saw it, yes, they were stupid. Although Tower Master Luchen was extraordinary, the gap between him and the man in front of him was still very obvious. How should they put it? The aura of the man in front of them was his own aura. And the aura of Tower Master Luchen was more or less borrowed from the power of the 9 pavilions. Di Baiming's heart sank when he saw that this bunch of idiots in front of him actually didn't make a sound. Could it be that these people all knew about Little Nine and that little sweetheart? So they deliberately hid it? When Di Baiming thought of this, the aura on his body became even more threatening. Master Ouyang's forehead couldn't help but sweat profusely. He hurriedly said, This young master, little Jiao is upstairs. I will bring you up now. When Di Baiming heard this, he nodded slightly. The aura on his body was slightly restrained. Master Ouyang immediately led Di Baiming upstairs with a bitter expression. Elder Jiu and the others followed behind him. Di Baiming frowned but didn't say anything. Master Ouyang and the others hadn't even reached the door of Yun Chujio's room when they heard Yun Chujio giggle. Senior brother Chu, you are quite tender at the critical moment. You are much better than my scumbag fiancé. Master Ouyang, disciple, ancestor, are you unlucky? Why did you have to say such words at this moment? Your scumbag fiancé is going to freeze your newly made master into an ice sculpture. At this moment, Chu Fong said with a smile, Junior sister Yun, it's not that senior brother is boasting, but at the crucial moment, senior brother is much more reliable than your fiancé. 2 words flashed through Master Ouyang's mind, courting death. This Chu Fong was courting death with his strength. Di Baiming's face was frighteningly gloomy. He stretched out his hand to push the door, but it didn't budge. It was actually locked inside? A certain honored master couldn't suppress his anger anymore. A man and a woman had even locked the door. What on earth were they doing? Bang! A certain someone smashed the door with his palm. He Xinjiao and Chu Fong, who were chatting and laughing inside, looked at the door in confusion. Yun Chujiao looked at Di Baiming's gloomy face that looked like a dead man and swallowed her saliva. She stretched out her claws and said weakly, Ex-fiancé, you're here? Ex-fiancé? A cold smile appeared on the corner of a certain someone's mouth. He ignored Yun Chujiao and looked at Chu Fong, who had a dumbfounded look on his face. What the hell was that pointy mouth and monkey cheeks? Putting everything else aside, there was something wrong with the name. It was both Chu and Fong. Was it gay or straight? Chapter 4256. My little darling Chu Fong was first intimidated by Di Baiming's pressure, and second, he felt goosebumps when Di Baiming looked at him like he was looking at a dead person. His legs could not help but go weak, and he staggered and almost fell to the ground. Yun Chujiao subconsciously went to help him, but before her hand touched Chu Fong, the poor kid, flew out of the back window with a whoosh. Elder Gu grinned. This was the 2nd floor. Although he was a cultivator, his stupid disciple was scared silly. He might have forgotten to ride his sword. Yun Chujiao glared at Di Baiming. What are you doing? Why did you slap senior brother Chu away for no reason? Are you sick again? Or did you not take your medicine when you went out? Di Baiming looked at her deeply, then grabbed her waist and jumped out of the 2nd floor window. He Xinjiao dared to say that just now because of the presence of Master Ouyang and the others. Seeing that Di Baiming was going to take her away, she immediately wailed, Master, help. Master, you can't just ignore your precious disciple. Master, you can't just leave her to die. Master Ouyang? Huh? Why did his ears suddenly stop working? His eyes also stopped working. He couldn't hear or see anything. Elder Duanmu and the others didn't move either. What a joke. Why would they get involved in the affairs of a couple? Besides, if they got involved, they would be tortured to death. Unless they had water in their heads, they would only ask for trouble. Speaking of which, Yun Chujia's fiancé was so powerful. How come they had never heard of him before? It was really strange. On the other side, He Xinjiao was brought out of the city by a certain deity. On the way, she even piqued Ku Fong, who was badly bruised. Di Baiming pointed at the miserable Chu Fong and asked, Is he the little darling you mentioned? Yun Chujiao shrunk her neck and looked at the dumbfounded Chu Fong with a look of reluctance. She said, No, he is the little darling of the little moon. It has nothing to do with me. Chu Fong finally felt blessed. He felt that he was most likely misunderstood as an adulterer. He quickly shouted, Yes, yes, I like Xiao Yu from the Flying Flower Island. Why would I like junior sister Yun? She is ruthless and full of evil intentions. If I marry her, I'm afraid that she will kill me without anyone knowing. Yun Chujiao gritted her teeth. The guilt in her heart was instantly fed to the dogs. Di Baiming glanced at Chu Fong. Seeing that what he said did not seem to be a lie, he snorted coldly and waved his sleeve. Scram! The pitiful Chu Fong flew out again. Fortunately, he had experience this time. Halfway through, he thought of riding a sword and disappeared without a trace. Where are you going? Di Baiming said coldly. He Xinjiao, who was about to escape, touched her nose guiltily. I don't want to go anywhere. Why are you looking for me? Who's little darling? Little darling is… Yun Chujio planned to take out one of the dumb cubs from the spiritual beast bag to fill in the numbers. However, those dumb cubs kneeled on the ground and kowtowed nonstop. Little fairy, master, please spare us. If we go out, we will die without a complete corpse. Yun Chujio, good, very good, these ingrates. Yun Chujio wanted to release the puppets again. This time, even those drifters squeezed out a word, no. Yun Chujio, this fellow really had no choice. In the end, he took out the big black pot, rubbed his hands, and laughed dryly. This is my little darling. As the saying goes, you are my heart, you are my liver, you are my big black pot. Chapter 4257, You Can Call Me Black-Eyed Wolf. D. Biming looked at the big black pot and sneered, It's your little darling? Hei Shinjio braced herself and said, Yes, I named it Little Darling. It's always called Big Black Pot. D. Biming's voice became colder. Even if it's Little Darling, what about your ex-fiancé? Ex-fiancé. Hei Shinjio kicked the pebble on the ground with the tip of her foot and stammered, not knowing how to explain it. D. Biming looked at Yun Chujio's rolling eyes and did not rush her. He wanted to hear how she wanted to smooth things over in the end. Hei Shinjio finally thought of an excuse and said slyly, Ex-fiancé, that's right, you are my ex-fiancé. Because in my heart, you are already my husband, so naturally, you are not my fiancé. Hei Shinjio secretly gave herself a 360-degree, that had no blind spots. This excuse was absolutely flawless. Although D. Biming knew that Yun Chujio was giving him an excuse, he had to admit that when he heard the word husband, his heart felt weak. However, when he thought of the short time and poor skill on the recording stone, his face immediately darkened. He squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. Then how do you explain the short time and poor skill? Hei Shinjio shrunk her neck and cursed in her heart. Humph, if I didn't say that, would you have run over here without any hesitation? Besides, he had never tried it before. Maybe it was really the short time and poor technique. Of course, only a fool would say what he was thinking. He blinked his eyes and said, Short time? Poor technique? I mean, when you massaged my shoulders, not only was the time short, but your technique was also poor. Is there a problem? D. Biming was furious. Massaging his shoulders? Then, how do you explain the last sentence that failed to make you pregnant after so many years? It's not easy to explain. If I wanted to be pregnant, I would be pregnant too. How could it be a baby? I've heard of piglets and puppies, but I've never heard of human babies. D. Biming sneered. He had finally seen what it meant to lie with his eyes wide open. Even if you can explain the first part, how do you explain the breakup fee and the ingrate at the end? Hei Shinjio really could not find any excuses. She simply started to act shamelessly. I'm just playing with you. If you're angry, you can call me an ingrate. Even if you call me a black-eyed wolf, I won't be angry. It's just a title, what's the big deal? D. Biming looked at Yun Chujio's scoundrel-like appearance. Even if he gritted his teeth in hatred, there was nothing he could do. Beat her? Of course, he couldn't bear to. Scold her? It didn't seem to be of any use to this little scoundrel. He couldn't hit her, he couldn't scold her, so he could only use the old method and kiss her. Hei Shinjio was dizzy from the kiss. Two words flashed through her mind. Done. When the two of them were kissing passionately, D. Biming suddenly covered Yun Chujio's mouth. The two of them hid behind a bush. Hei Xinjia's face was red, and she looked at D. Biming in confusion. D. Biming's throat tightened, and he closed his eyes before he mouthed, Someone is coming. Yun Chujio was stunned. Who would come here in the middle of the night? Yun Chujio looked out through the gap in the bush. After a while, she saw many masked men gathering in this direction. The leader said, Search. Yun Chujio and D. Biming must be nearby. Yun Chujio captured them alive. D. Biming will kill them without mercy. Chapter 4258 was about Mei Lan Lu Li again. Yun Chujio was shocked. Who are these people? Why were they so familiar with her and the gigolo's whereabouts? Obviously, someone had tipped them off. The place where the two of them were hiding was not safe. They would probably be discovered soon. Di Baiming's eyes flashed with a trace of sternness. He gave Yun Chujio a look, indicating for her to stay here. He went out to send them away. Although his spiritual power was suppressed in the towering sky continent, it was not a problem for him to take care of these people. Di Baiming's figure suddenly flashed. The two people closest to the bushes had already been killed by him. With another flash, another two people fell to the ground. Following Di Baiming's ghostly figure, there was soon a pile of corpses on the ground. Hei Shinjio was speechless. Damn, the gigolo was getting more and more powerful. This was a killer weapon that would never fail. The leader obviously did not expect Di Baiming's spiritual power to be so terrifying. He suddenly remembered something. He took out several items that were shimmering with a faint blue light from his storage ring and threw them at Di Baiming, who was fighting. Di Baiming used his palm wind to smash those items into pieces. However, the next moment he knew that he had fallen into a trap. Di Baiming felt that the spiritual power in his body was rapidly depleting. Moreover, the cold poison that had not relapsed for a long time had also relapsed. The person who was hurling at him was actually the blue marble. How did these people know that the blue marble was his weakness? Where did they get so many blue marble? Hei Shinjio, who was hiding behind the bushes, secretly cried out. The pretty boy had been tricked. These masked men not only had high spiritual power, but there were also many of them. If the pretty boy had not been tricked, he could have easily taken care of these dregs. However, the current situation was too disadvantageous for them. Yun Chujio thought of this and was about to go out to help, but Di Baiming flashed in front of her and held her waist. The aura on his body suddenly soared, and he released an ice dragon to repel the masked men's attack. Then he brought Yun Chujio and rushed towards the direction of Azure Cloud City. There were cultivators from the 6 sects gathered in Azure Cloud City. These masked men would definitely not dare to follow them in. Therefore, as long as they entered Azure Cloud City, they would be temporarily safe. Yun Chujio saw that Di Baiming's face was getting paler and paler. There were even ice shards appearing on his hair. She knew that Di Baiming's cold poison was acting up again. She hated those masked men to death. She kept throwing talismans at them, regardless of whether they were high-level talismans or low-level talismans. Sacks after sacks of talismans were thrown out. Those masked men were unlucky. The few people who were chasing at the front were blown to pieces. Although the people at the back were on guard and avoided the talismans, they also slowed down and watched as Di Baiming and Yun Chujio entered the Yunsong city. The leader gritted his teeth. There was a large group of cultivators in Yunsong city now. Even if they chased after them, they would not gain anything. Di Baiming had already fallen into the trap anyway. There were many other ways to kill him. Hence, he waved his hand and left with the masked men. Yun Chujio saw that the people did not chase after them and heaved a sigh of relief. However, when she saw Di Baiming beside her, her heart could not help but sink. Di Baiming's body was already covered in a layer of ice, and his spiritual power level was dropping rapidly. It had even dropped to the spiritual power level. She could not care about anything else. She took out a rolling pin and smashed the ice on Di Baiming's body. Then she was going to cut her wrist and use her blood to help Di Baiming resist the cold poison. Chapter 4259. Are you injured? Unexpectedly, Di Baiming suddenly opened his eyes and said with great effort, "No need. I can hold it." Hei Shinjio saw that he was still stubborn at this time, so she angrily gave him a rolling pin. Unexpectedly, Di Baiming wanted to stand up and stay away from her so that she wouldn't insist on feeding him blood. Coincidentally, the rolling pin landed on Di Baiming's forehead. Di Baiming was already at the end of his tether. This rolling pin became the straw that broke the camel's back, and he passed out. Yun Chujio, was she trying to murder her husband? However, passing out was just the right time to prevent him from refusing to drink the blood. Yun Chujio was about to draw her blood when she saw Di Baiming's body emitting a dazzling light. Then she saw a small silver snake on the ground. It was a small silver snake that was frozen stiff. Yun Chujio was stunned for a moment before she understood. Bai Ming's spiritual power had soared for a moment before he managed to get rid of those masked men. He must have used a secret technique, so the side effect was that he had turned into a small silver snake again. However, this was also good. At least she could bring him along with her so that he wouldn't attract any attention. At the same time, she could save his life. She didn't believe that those masked men would dare to openly oppose the Nameless Sword sect. Yun Chujio thought of this and looked at the frozen silver snake. She felt a little troubled. She could not set fire to it, right? In the end, she gritted her teeth and stuffed the silver snake into her clothes. The bone-piercing chill made this fellow shiver. However, she saw that the effect was not bad, so she could only shiver as she walked towards the inn. The inn was brightly lit. Master Ouyang and the others were obviously not asleep. Or rather, this group of old men were all waiting curiously for the follow-up. Elder Duanmu frowned and said, "The little girl's fiancé looks too cold. He won't do anything to the little girl, right?" Elder Dongfang smiled and said, "Don't worry. That little girl is full of schemes. She will be fine." Elder Gu echoed, "That's right. They are a young couple. It will be fine once the misunderstanding is resolved. Moreover, I don't think the little girl's fiancé is an unreasonable person." Chu Fong, whose face was badly bruised, "Are you my own master? Your disciple has been thrown to such a state? And you are still speaking for him?" As everyone was discussing, they saw Yun Chujio walking in from outside, trembling. Everyone thought to themselves, "It seems that this little girl has been taught a good lesson. Otherwise, she wouldn't still be trembling in fear." Master Ouyang coughed lightly and asked, "Little Nine, where's your fiancé?" Yun Chujio squeezed out a smile and said, "He has something to do and has to leave first." "Well, if there's nothing else, I'll go back to my room first." Master Ouyang saw that she didn't look too good, so he waved his hand. Anyway, it wasn't an urgent matter, so it wouldn't be too late to ask tomorrow. At this time, Chu Fong cried out in surprise, "Junior Sister Yun, why is there blood on your clothes? Are you injured?" Yun Chujio looked down in confusion and saw a small blood stain on her chest, and it was still spinning. She was shocked. Could it be that the gigolo had vomited blood? She did not have time to say anything and rushed back to her room. Yun Chujio closed the door and quickly took out the small silver snake from her clothes. It was still cold in her hands, but it was no longer frozen. Hei Shinjio saw that the small silver snake's nose was still bleeding. She was so angry that she threw the small silver snake directly onto the bed. A certain being who was bleeding from his nose could be considered to hate Chu Fong. It was not easy to have a chance to have intimate contact with his wife, but it was interrupted by him. That thing that did not know whether it was straight or gay was really detestable. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.